What up, players? It's WarbossTae up in this mug. Welcome to the first video I have going in a series of videos, which I'm going to call Fireforge Fridays. Every Friday, we're going to take a look at one of these kits from Fireforge Games, and I'm going to unbox it, show it to you, and talk a little bit about my thoughts on it. And then on Monday, I'm going to call them Mongol Mondays, I'm going to show you the painted, finished product of what I was able to achieve over the weekend. So these are kits for the Mongol Army from Fireforge Games, and it's meant to be played with their game set called Deus Vult. You can check out their models and the game at fireforge-games.com. So I definitely suggest that you check it out because these are some awesome models. You might remember a couple years back I unboxed and painted up one of their plastic Teutonic Knights figures, and I just had a blast with that one. So let's check out the Mongols now. I have 5 kits that I'm going to be looking at over the next couple of weeks, and I'm going to just kind of show you the boxes here, and then we're going to switch to another video, another clip, and I'll show you some of the other kits that I have. But I wanted to talk about the game itself and the company. I actually interviewed Francesco over at Fireforge Games, and I asked him some questions about the Mongol Army, the Deus Vult game, and I knew going into this that I wanted to give their products a very detailed review and honest review. So here are some answers, questions and answers that I sent him. The first question I'd asked him was, these Mongol models, these figures, are supposed to be used with the Deus Vult rule set, and I asked him to give me a brief overview of the game because I'm not familiar with Deus Vult, and as a wargamer who's kind of grown up with the more bigger named companies, I wanted to know, okay, well, what makes this game set different? So Francesco told me that it's a rule set to play medieval armies during the Crusade era. We introduced first the absence of a static turn, which means that there's no my turn, your turn, where everybody moves and shoots and fights and does everything on one side and then the other person does all of theirs. But instead, you activate the units one at a time, moving, firing, and going into charges. And after that is the turn of your opponents, back and forth until the divisions of the two armies have all been activated. It's really different by a fantasy game. There are not great heroes who destroy units, but you need your commanders alive to move your army. And it is as battle was in the past. You cannot simply kill the enemy models. You need to disorder the enemy ranks, have strong control of the battlefield, build the right army for your battlefield strategies. I think that's a really, really cool idea and concept, and I would love it if I could learn more about the game. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to check out the Deus Vult rules after, and over the next couple of weeks, rather, and just kind of wrap my head around it and let you know how I feel about that. But really, as more of a modeler, hobbyist, and painter, I am just so excited to get into these models. And so my second question, which kind of follows the first, was what was it that inspired your team to develop a range of miniatures for the Mongols? And so Francesco says, in the historical market, we saw that there were not many good Mongol figures. Before Fireforge, whoever wanted to build his own Mongol army needed to buy many metal figures, and a lot of them were of poor sculpting quality. We thought that making the Mongols would be a nice idea because in just a little bit of time, we could have an entire range for people to assemble a Mongol army. So we made the plastic cavalry box set and an infantry box set in a very short amount of time. Then we worked to create our resin range, which are all the models I'm going to show you, making many tests to find the production system and the right material. And that's what takes so much time. But the Mongol resin figures are now ready to be released, and our future production in resin will be surely better thanks to our experience with the Mongol resin production. And that is very, very heartening because it looks like, if you go to their website, fireforge-games.com, it really looks like they have some interesting concepts in the works. They've got some great concept art for future armies that they're planning, and it all looks different. You know, the first figures that I saw, the man-at-arms and the Teutonic Knights and stuff, they looked very, very medieval and Western. And seeing these Mongol armies and seeing the concepts for some of the other Middle Eastern armies and those kinds of aesthetic, I think is very, very heartening. Okay, so I'm going to show you some other models that we're going to be looking at. Mongol Heavy Cavalry Archers and Mongol Heavy Cavalry Lancers. The third question I asked him was, while developing the miniatures for your Mongol range, what design elements did your designers really focus on? And Francesco said they absolutely focused on the dynamism of the figures. The first thing we study in our figures, trying to give people the idea that their figures are not only static figures, but not only static statues, but figures that seem to be moving on the battlefield. And that is something that I love, that I always look for in any miniature that I paint, is what is the sense of movement. Like, I kind of really don't care for the man standing with his leg up on something just posing. The stand and pose figure, I think, the aesthetic is very 90s and kind of old-fashioned, and so being able to see figures now with movement and dynamism, especially because when you look at the Mongols, they were such a mobile army, and they were known for sweeping really quickly and enveloping and just attacking from all sides with overwhelming numbers, and not being able to predict, the enemy weren't able to predict their movements a lot, and that's how they won. Some of their strategies were just overwhelm and lightning fast strikes and stuff. So the dynamism, I think, is very, very important. You don't want a range of figures if you're designing a Mongol army. You don't want a range where they are just kind of trotting. The horses are just kind of trotting and they're just kind of sitting in the saddle. You want them to look like they are dashing across the plains. So I love that. That's great. All of them were made with strong historical research, yeah, obviously, and sometimes we take design licenses, as we made for the proportion of the battle axes for their knights and the heroic scale of the Mongol horses. It's simply for better battle aesthetics. That I agree with, because one of the things that kind of, I don't want to say annoyed me, but one of the things that was disheartening of the old Lord of the Rings models for Games Workshop was that the scale was different. And because the scale was realistic scale, the details sometimes got lost because the figures were so small. And so being able to take some of the design elements and creatively expand upon them, I think is I think it's a good idea, because it's a miniatures war game. It's not meant to be photorealistic. It's, I think, supposed to look a little bit exaggerated, because you want to be able to see it from across the field. That's the thing that kind of, I don't want to say, again, I hate saying annoyed me, because, you know, I love Lord of the Rings, I love Games Workshop products, but any modeling company, any miniatures company where the range is completely accurate to human scale, when you bring it down, a lot of things are going to be they're just going to look not good. They're not going to look good on the tabletop. So the fact that Fireforge is able to say, okay, let's look at these historical things that we can take the design elements, and let's see, what do we need to bump up so that if somebody's just walking by the table, they will see immediately, whoa, look at that model, look at the long mustaches, look at the hats. You can kind of improve upon the authentic thing, and I think that's really great. So I'm ending here on the Mongol drummer on camel, because I think this is the most interesting of the resin figures that we're looking at. And I am going to start, like I said, Fireforge Fridays is going to be going on for the next month. And every Friday I'm going to take a look at one of these figures, and I'm going to unbox it, I'm going to show it off, and talk a little bit about it, and then over the weekend I'm going to build it up and paint it and show you what it looks like on Monday. I hope you guys join along with me. I hope, again, you check out fireforge-games.com, see what other historical figures they have that you might be interested in, and check out their rule set, Deus Vult. So that's it for me. Thank you for watching my first video in Fireforge Fridays, in the series that I'm going to be doing for the historical figures offered by Fireforge Games.